everybody. Welcome in to Load the Box. I think my camera's a little askew. Whatever, you're not going to be seeing my ugly mug for very long. I am Jordan Hawthorne. I am joined tonight by the marvelous, the wonderful, and the slightly ill Jack Day. Jack, how are you doing? I haven't updated the ticker, so I hope there's no like breaking news down there. I might have to edit that mid-show. I just noticed that. And also, this is an on-air sound check to make sure we don't have any issues like we did last week. So how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Like you said, I was recovering, had COVID last week, so still kind of getting over you might hear it in my nose a little bit still, but feeling a lot better, which is good. Perfect timing the night before the draft, obviously. It's kind of like Christmas Eve for you and myself and a lot of the other draft heads out there that are obnoxiously obsessed with doing hundreds of mock drafts and just researching and watching highlights and all this fun stuff. But the day that we've all been waiting for, the weekend that we've all been waiting for, is pretty much here. The draft, that first jingle is going to hit in about 26 hours or so. So looking forward to diving into it and doing Load the Box's final mock draft of the 2022 season. It feels like we've done so much preparation and work towards this moment, and we're probably going to get a mock out there tonight that has completely goes the opposite direction. Tomorrow, I'm so excited for this draft because I don't know, like even last year and the year before, it kind of felt you knew what the Vikings' need was. You knew they needed a tackle in Riley Reef left. You knew that there was a handful of guys that were in play. This year, it really feels like, and this isn't just for the Vikings, the entire draft in general, it feels like there are analysts that are so far off from one another, and that excites me, and I'm just excited to see the fireworks tomorrow. And it's in Las Vegas on top of it, so I'm sure we're gonna be spoiled watching it throughout the weekend.
Yeah, that was my main concern when you said you had COVID because like you're a young, healthy man. You said you felt like good-ish, so like I wasn't worried about like physically you dying so much as I was like, oh man, that means you're not going to be able to do anything for the draft probably besides like watch it at home, which sucks because I love watching the draft with people and around people, and obviously me and you are about as socially distanced as two people can get. I think we're about 12 hours apart via my Prius. So, yeah, I don't think there's been any crazy news. There's been a few press conferences here and there, but I don't think we need to go through and break down what Quasey's saying. The one thing I do want to talk about before we put our faces and get really small and we do the mock draft and everything, I do want to talk about all of this hubbub, if you will, about the Vikings being heavily involved in trade talks for tomorrow night. What would surprise you, Mo, to see the Vikings move up into like a top 5, maybe top 7 pick, or to see the Vikings stick at 12 and then move back into the first round, maybe sacrifice some capital next year to get a second first round pick this year?
I think it would shock me more if they were to move in the top 5, 6, 7 of this draft. I don't know if they have the ammunition to necessarily jump up that high, and I don't know if a new regime's going to want to come in and start throwing away picks for future years when there still is a lot of missing holes on this current roster. But I think it was Chad Graff of The Athletic actually reported this morning that if a player, and I think it was Thibodeau and Sauce Gardner, I think those were the two that he mentioned, not 100% sure on that, but if they start sliding towards that 8-9 range, he mentioned that there could be a situation where the Vikings are making phone calls trying to slide up. But I think right now, the more, if I'm going off of just best guess, I think it's more likely that this team trades back and acquires more value throughout the draft in this year or a 2023 class that is a lot deeper of a quarterback class.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting as I make sure that the everything is pulled up correctly. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Quasey's approach is for the draft. Is he going to be very aggressive? I do think that they think this team is like similar to where Los Angeles was last year, similar to, hey, we add a few pieces here and there, we could get into the playoffs. Once you're in the dance, anything can happen. I think they think this is definitely a playoff caliber roster. So it'll be interesting. Do you go all in on that, or do you say, we think it's good enough now, we're going to really make sure that if this blows up in our face, next year we have all the ammunition? So there's a few different ways it can go. I think tonight, me and you, are we planning on sticking and picking every pick, or are we going to trade in this? We really didn't discuss this.
I guess we'll see. I think more, the majority of the mock drafts that I've done, I've traded back. So I just have a feel that for some reason I feel like that's going to happen because I'm a Minnesota sports fan in general. I've watched the Timberwolves lose in heartbreaking fashion several times already. this year. So I just have a feeling that the Derek Stingleys, Sauce Gardners, Thibodeau's, Kyle Hamilton, I have a feeling that those guys are all going to be off the board and the Vikings make their pick at 12. Like I said, no one really knows what's going to happen. So one of those guys could start to fall. They could certainly fall to 12. But at this moment in time, it just feels like the bigger names are going to be gone. And I think if that is the case, it likely means there's not going to be a run on quarterbacks early. So maybe a quarterback needy team as like the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New Orleans Saints try to jump up to 12 if Malik Willis falls or Pickett falls. One of those guys is there at 12. Maybe someone decides to jump up with the Vikings. And right now, I think that's the most likely scenario, but I guess we'll just have to see how the board falls for us tonight.
Absolutely. I'm looking at this draft boat on the Draft Network, and it's insane to me. The difference in where we were the day after the Super Bowl doing mock drafts and where we are now. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit as we get into this, but let me go ahead and switch it over. Fingers crossed. Oh, wait, hang on. So before I switch it over, you see, I have to share my screen first, so that way you can see the mock draft as well. There you go. Can you see that? Can you see the mock draft?
Let me see. I got to click into the watch stream. Yep, there we go.
All right,
Perfect.
perfect. Oh man, everybody can see that I just had to do that. So we'll go into the mock scene. Hey, it works. We're figuring it out. We have some production value. We have a little bit of effort thrown into this show now, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful. So as of right now, we're sitting at 12. I'm going to let the first 5 picks go, and I know we don't want to like go pick by pick. I'm not going to break down the top 5, but I do want to see once we get to Carolina at 6, who's there, how the boat has fallen, and see maybe about moving up, because I feel like that's one thing that it wouldn't shock me. I don't know. All of the reports coming out about the Vikings talking to kind of move up, it would not shock me at all if they attempted to move up to get a guy like Sauce. Who knows? Maybe get a guy like Thibodeau. Or maybe this is one of those drafts where Aiden Hutchinson is available at 8, and we move up and we get Aiden Hutchinson, and then we'll set it edge forever. But let's go ahead and start the draft. We'll let it go. Malik Willis just went. Okay, well, I didn't stop it in time because my reflexes aren't good. But Malik Willis going is pretty good, but Gardner and Thibodeau are gone. So I think for the sake of realism, I'm going to go ahead and let it play out to 12.
Yeah, I don't think you trade up if that's the board that you're looking at. If both Sauce and Thibodeau are gone, which I'm fully expecting to be the case, I don't think you move up. What was that offer?
It was a 1, 2, and a 5. And the reason I didn't accept it is just because I did want to have some talk. Me and you have talked, and we talked at length 2 weeks ago after the show about a guy named Kyle Hamilton, who plays at Notre Dame University. He is, as many people would call them, a gold domo. And Jack, I really want to stick and pick. I know that we can add resources and we can get a bunch of these guys in the second and third and fourth rounds that we really like, but like, a lot of people less than 2 months ago were saying Kyle Hamilton is the best player in this draft, but he's a safety, so like the value isn't there or whatever you want to have it. Screw what PFF says, screw what anybody says. Kyle Hamilton is he's a jack of all trades on a defense. He can kind of play, you can stick him basically anywhere, probably not on the interior, probably not on the line, but anywhere in the middle or secondary, he's going to be able to play it. Personally, I love the Kyle Hamilton thing. I do want to hear your take here, though, because I don't want to, just run this mock draft while you watch.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think if you would have told you or myself a month or 2 months ago that Kyle Hamilton was there at 12, I think I would have found a way to fly down to Las Vegas and turn this card in for the Vikings myself, because he is a superstar type football player. The Vikings have had damn good safety play out of the same university for the last decade plus with Harrison Smith. So why not bring in another counterpart? They're talking about Derek Stingley being a perfect fit because, hey, Patrick Peterson, it's DBU with LSU. You can kind of teach him the ways, if you will. I think Harrison Smith can do the same thing with Kyle Hamilton. And the ceiling with Kyle Hamilton is a lot higher than what it was for Harrison Smith coming into the NFL. If I do say so myself. So, I don't know if this is going to be a realistic situation tomorrow night. I think it's a surprising name that's starting to fall deeper and deeper. I don't know if the Vikings are going to look at safety differently than you and myself, where they're going to value it a little bit less. But at the end of the day, Kyle Hamilton is a top 3 player in this draft class. I don't care if he ran a 4.5 40 or a 4.4 40. It really doesn't bother me that much. I mean, you go back, the play that everyone talks about. I remember I was watching the play at my cabin. It was insane. It was the Florida State game. It was one of the first games for Notre Dame in the season. Kyle Hamilton was on the opposite hash, and he picked the ball off with a toe drag on the opposite sideline from the hash. And one of the most plays that I've ever seen live. I remember watching that and saying, this is why this guy's going to be a top 3 pick come April next year. And for him to fall into the Vikings' lap at 12, I don't care if he's a safety or not. You have to pull the trigger on him, and I think it opens up this defense for Donatel. A lot of people are excited about the future of Cameron Bynum, and rightfully so. I think the future, the safety position will kind of be set in stone with those two. But you can throw some 3 safety looks out there with all 3 of them. Cam Bynum he was a cornerback at the University of California. You can mix these guys around, and I'm talking about versatility throughout the last couple months. It's a huge thing for me, and I think it's going to be a huge thing for this defense moving forward. Adding a superstar on that side of the ball, it doesn't matter at this point. If it's a superstar, you need it on all 3 phases of that defense, and I'm completely fine with pulling the trigger on Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, I mean, as you were talking, I was kind of just glancing, and I was trying to kind of show the Draft Network's approach of not approach, but their view or their scouting report on him, and I mean, it really feels like, and I'm not going to sit here and read their report word for word. If check out the Draft Network, they do great work. I'm going to go ahead and submit the pick. It feels to me, if Kyle Hamilton falls to the Vikings at 12, and this is going to sound like outlandish, it feels like Micah Parsons falling to the Cowboys and everyone being like, they don't even need linebackers. They are so deep at that position. But you take elite defenders. Do we want to trade back 11 picks for a 5th and a 6th?
This would be trading up. So just remember what that was.
Okay.
And then close. Well, I guess we can't remember what it was because it'll start right. That's one thing I wish that you could pause a little bit easier, because there are players on the board right now that I would. Oh, you were able to get out of that. Never mind.
I got it.
You can do that. You're way ahead of me at
I play video games. I've been playing a lot of Fortnite on the computer, so it's bam bam, like.
So what I was going to say, there's a player in this range that I think is going to go in the back end of the first round or early on day 2 that I would have traded up for if he was still there. It looks like Detroit snagged him with the Vikings. In this scenario, the Vikings will be playing against him for years to come. But Kyler Gordon is a guy that I don't think is necessarily getting the recognition that he deserves, because his counterpart at the University of Washington, Trent McDuffie, is all the rave in the first round. I love both of them. They're both physical, kind of gritty cornerbacks, and I really like cornerbacks that play like that. They're good in coverage, sticky cornerbacks. I would have liked trading up for Kyler Gordon, because then the future of the secondary, I think, is completely set in stone. He's not there, so I don't think you pull the trigger on that trade. I know Kwesi made the comment that there's no amount. I don't know if this is a direct shot at Rick Spielman or not, or if you saw this. He said something along the lines of, there's no amount of 7th round picks that will equal the value of 1 first round pick. And I just want to give him an applause for saying that, because I think Vikings fans across the country were laughing at that one. But I don't think you want to necessarily lose. It was a 5th and a 6th rounder. There's still going to be some good players available there for the Vikings. And right now, I don't know if there's anyone on this board that I think is worth trading up for. I will say I do like, possibly, but I don't know if you lose picks for at the linebacker position. I could also see a scenario playing out where Quay Walker is still there. I personally, with going safety in the first round, I'd be a lot more aggressive on the cornerback position in the 2nd and 3rd round. But I think we see how the board plays out and just see who's there at 46, and if we want to decide to trade back.
I think I agree with you here. We're going to go ahead and decline their offer. We're not going to trade. We're going to stick at 46. Leave us alone, Jets. We don't like you. Good night. All right, here we go. The Patriots want to give us a 2, 6, and a 7 next year. I'm out on that. I'm not.
Yeah, I don't need that.
A 4 and a 6, and they're not even giving us their 2nd this year. That's a terrible trade. We're gonna decline all these offers. We're gonna check out the board, and let me check it out. hang on, where did he go? I hate the Jets. I hate the Jets so much. They took Tariq Woolen, who was 51 on the draft board, 16 picks ahead of where he should have went, because they hate me and because I said mean things about him, I guess. But Tariq Woolen is kind of my, like, favorite obtainable defensive back in this class. It wasn't on this show. I think it was on another show that I do during the season. I made a comment about how, like, you can't always bag a 10, but if you can bag a good 7, you got a great, you're happy. And that's what Tariq Woolen is. All the physical tools, went to a small school. He's not the 10 prospect that Ahmad Gardner is, that Derek Stingley is. He's not this, gonna step in day one and probably be the, one of the top 5 corners in the game maybe. But his physical traits are all so appealing to me that I really, really want Tariq Woolen as a Viking, and I had to take time to talk about him because I'm really upset that he's not going to be there. But this does leave us in an interesting position where here we sit. I see a name on this board that I really like, and I think you really like, and I'm gonna let you talk about who you are liking on this board before we do anything.
Yeah, I think you're talking about George Pickens. I think we both kind of raved about him the last couple weeks leading up to the show, and it's interesting. Keenan McCardle said something, or Kwesi said that he said something in his press conference, essentially pounding his fist on the table to not draft a wide receiver. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's some sort of smoke screen being thrown by Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, where he's saying one thing and then they're actually going to do the other thing. We just don't know. And that the new regime is what makes this so entertaining. But I would be 100% okay with that. I know that's going to make a lot of people probably cringe because the wide receiver position to some isn't as big of a need. Thor Nystrom from NBC Sports Edge has been tweeting out some clips of him, and it's not even highlight reel catches. It's straight up him scrapping with opposing cornerbacks and just bullying guys, blocking. I love the physicality in this game. I think that's part of the reason that you and I have both been drawn to this game throughout our lifetime for such a long period of time. And on top of the physical skill sets and how gifted he is, he's a great wide receiver too. And I think adding a dog like that to that wide receiver room with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, it would only make Kirk Cousins' job that much easier. I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that say we still need offensive line help. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but with how this board has fallen, it hurts the Vikings at the cornerback position because, like you said, Woolen is off the board here. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think there's a small chance that a Kyler Gordon starts to slide in the second round. Maybe the Vikings start moving a little bit more on day 2 rather than day 1. Like I said a little earlier, I love Kyler Gordon. I think him and Kyle Hamilton in rounds 1 and 2 would be an A+ start to the draft for Kwesi and his new team. But yeah, right now, looking at the board, I do like Jalen Petrie a lot too, but there's no way in hell that a team that an NFL team is that doesn't necessarily value the safety position gonna go back to back with 2 safeties. But yeah, I think looking at this board, Perrion Winfrey's another one. He had a great Senior Bowl. I don't know if he's the greatest fit for the 3-4 scheme that the Vikings are gonna run, but looking at this board right now, I think you go George Pickens, and then you either trade up in the 3rd round or you got to try to find a cornerback with your next pick, if that is the pick.
Yeah, I agree. Before I put this pick, okay, I'm gonna put this pick in really quick. I'm gonna let a few picks go here, and then I'm gonna pause at 65 just to let the board run a little bit before kind of talking about strategy.
What are they asking for?
They want to. So our 3rd round pick, our 7th round pick, and next year's 4th. Which I'm going to be honest with you, that's kind of why I wanted to pause at 65, was to talk about we got to move up. We gotta do something to move up. We lost a 4th round pick. I think that I personally think that rounds 1, 2, and sometimes 3, those picks they have such a better likelihood of hitting that. Yeah, I'm okay with giving up a 7th and a 4th next year. Like, I'm okay with, kind of sacrificing some of the back end guys to really make sure you're trying to get top end talent in the front of the draft, which is what I hope Kwesi's approach is the same. But I'm a guy that lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. I drive to a 9 to 5 every day. I don't scout NFL players professionally, but This trade is appealing to me, but I obviously can't make the decision. We wouldn't have a third or fourth round pick, but we would go a 1 and 2 twos.
Can you go back? Can we look? We look at the board here again and like
Yeah,
get
hang on,
out
give
of
me
this
1
trade?
second. Bam, bam, got it.
Okay. So, looking at the board, Chad Muma is an interesting name. I think the linebacker position is something that will get addressed at some point. Param, the interior offensive lineman out of Memphis. There's still a lot of like good talent on the board. This is a point in the Nick Bonito is another name that I think could be a great fit, kind of learning behind
If a draft
Za'Darius.
doesn't have Josh Pascal in it, it's a bad draft. I'm just saying, he's a quality prospect out of Kentucky. I like him a lot.
The only thing that worries me here is going for a position that I don't know. I don't want to reach, but I do want to say that I think cornerback and getting a cornerback that can play this year and play meaningful snaps is going to be important for this team. And it worries me a little bit going through the first 2 picks and not having a cornerback out of that. I know you get a surefire day 1 starter in Kyle Hamilton. I do like Alontae Taylor. Cam Taylor-Britt is another cornerback that I've really liked throughout the entire process. But having said that, I think we can wait it out a little bit and just see what happens. I don't know if I want to trade up and reach for one of those players. I don't know
if we trade up, I think there's no way we're taking a Kono. I think if we trade up, we have to be looking at a guy like Chad Muma, Dylan Parham, or Josh Pascal. I think it is it's going to be like a pass rusher. It's going to be somebody in the trenches just because the way that the board has fallen. So I think we'll wait. Maybe look at trading into the fourth or maybe trading into the third and then just not having a fourth, kind of seeing how the board shakes out. One name that I have to bring up really quickly as I resume the draft. I wouldn't be mad if we got Kobe Bryant. Again, he's not. The deeper you go, obviously, this is just common sense, the less likely you are to. I don't think we want to trade this much stuff to move up. Like, oh, well, we can get a third and a fourth out of it, but we're giving up 5, 6, and 7 this year. So seems like an L. But Kobe Bryant, obviously close to my heart. Let's see, move back 10 picks for a 6th round pick. How's that sound?
Move back. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the websites and the simulators kind of just have to throw stuff at you. I think that's how they make their money. But I don't think at this point, close out of that. I don't think we necessarily need to trade back. And look at that. Kobe Bryant is just sitting staring.
Is there. There's some other guys that are on here. We've got Abraham Lucas, the tackle. Wandale Robinson is a name. We took George Pickens, so I don't think we're taking another wide receiver, but I do like Wandale Robinson. I like a lot of these Kentucky guys for some reason. Kentucky's been a decent program.
There's another name on this list too that I think is a very realistic option for the Vikings at 77, and that's Cole Strange, the smaller school interior offensive lineman. But the Vikings did host him on a top 30 visit. I thought I saw his name on there. Am I going crazy?
I think you did because thought I remember seeing it, but I'm not.
No, he'd be up higher. He's like top 80, I believe.
Oh, okay. I was way low. Yeah, it is. Right there. That's my fault.
So he's a guy that I think the Vikings really like, and he would be an upgrade on the interior of that offensive line. I still don't know if I would like necessarily reaching for the cornerback position. If a guy like Cam Taylor-Britt would have fallen, I would have taken him here 100%. That's another thing. He used to be like ranked less than 100th. It was always 100th and less, and he's a name that's starting to kind of quietly sneak up these big boards. I've seen him in some simulators going as early as the back end of the 2nd round now, which is absolutely crazy to me. It looks like Jacksonville took him at 70 in this one, but I don't think tight end is fully out of the equation here, and there's 2 really good ones looking at us directly in the face here, and Isaiah Likely and Trey McBride. I think Trey McBride is kind of the consensus number 1 tight end in this class. It just seems like there are so many other positions of need for this team, and going in that direction, you see Nick Bonito go off right before, another cornerback right before us. I honestly wouldn't hate sliding down a little bit here if there were any teams that were looking to trade up, but I think if I'm drafting, if I'm Kwesi Adofo-Mensah in this situation, I think I'm leaning towards Cole Strange. partially because it is kind of still a position of need, and the other half of me saying, you know what, here, Vikings Twitter, we did it. We took an interior offensive lineman. Do not yell at us. Like I said, it scares the living hell out of me going through the first 3 rounds and not having a cornerback come off the board, but I still think there are some riskier cornerback plays that you can take in the 4th and 5th, 6th rounds that you've talked about a couple. I know there's a couple that I like. I think we kind of overlap on a few that we like as well, but it's going to be a position where now having known what we've done up to this point, we're going to have to take a couple dart throws at the cornerback position.
Now, luckily, I do have one specific doubt, though, that I love to make, and that is Jack Jones out of Arizona State. He's a guy that I do think could be really good. So I paused the draft because I said we should trade with New England and move up and take Kobe Bryant. It'll be a bit of a reach, but we'll get Kobe Bryant. We'll move up. It'll be like we're replacing our 4th round pick. And of course, I said, no, I'll let it keep playing out. We'll get closer to like the Bills, the Titans. And Kobe Bryant went to the New England Patriots in this mock draft. So really quickly, let's go ahead. 3 rounds in. We've gotten Kyle Hamilton, George Pickens, and Cole Strange. Already, I think we've drafted the same amount of offensive players as we did in our last mock draft, and we're only 3 rounds deep. But we're talking about getting I think, day 1 contributor on the offense in George Pickens, who is physical, does like to run block, does like to get nitty-gritty, which I think fits with... I don't know if it'll fit in Kevin O'Connell's offense, but I do think it fits in what Minnesota's football team has been about for the last 25 years. And then we get Cole Strange, who comes in, and now we have ourselves a little, hey, Cole Strange, Wyatt Davis, whoever else that we're going to, all these free agents we've bought in, throw a pool cue in the middle and make them beat each other with it, and the winner, whoever walks out alive, gets the job. And so we have a good competition to see that. We're going to get better on the interior. I do want to say, I'm not panicked. If we get Kyle Hamilton in the secondary and then we don't take a corner until like the 4th or 5th round, I'm not panicking. And it's a combination of, we have signed a couple free agents to come in, and I'm not saying they're going to be like day 1 starters, but we're going to have Patrick Peterson, who was all right. We're going to have Cam Dantzler, who is all right. And I think Kyle Hamilton's versatility will come into play, where he will, I think, play a combination of safety, or Bynum will play a traditional safety role because maybe Kyle Hamilton is just needed to play cornerback this year more than he plays safety, because maybe they don't like how Bynum is going to play the safety position, is going to play the cornerback position, so they leave him at safety. So I think Kyle Hamilton will kind of fill in some holes in that secondary, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I do think cornerback has to be heavy on our minds as we move along here. There's a lot of guys that we start getting down here, and it's like, oh my gosh, who are they going to take? But we'll see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and resume the draft. So far, I like this draft, personally. Now, the question is, when do you want me to pause it to try and trade up, if at all?
Yeah, I think we just kind of let it play out here for a little while and see what happens. It's funny that Jack Johnson guy, because I'm starting to like another corner from the ASU, which I know we talked about a little bit on one of them. But Chase Lucas, he's another name that tested really well. He's analytical. The analytical people really love him because the RAS score that he has is super high. And I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like I am the smartest when it comes excuse me. I'm not the smartest when it comes to analytical terms and all that stuff, but trying to get better at that. I know he is a player that a lot of the people that lean towards that direction, and I know Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the word analytics gets thrown around a lot with him, and he did test extremely well.
Oh.
Okay, that gets interesting. What are they asking for?
They want 5, 6, 7, so they want the rest of our picks for a 4 and a 5.
We still have actually 2 6s too. I think we have 191 and 192.
That's right.
I'm okay with this. If there's a cornerback,
I
think we take that trade. And I know it's not like how big is Jack Jones? Because one thing that I don't want to do, I want to make sure that we get someone that can play on the outside. The kid from Houston.
Go ahead.
is another the kid from Houston. He must have went off here a little bit ago, but he is another guy that I like. But I had no idea. I always knew he was more of a slot defender. I didn't know he was 5'8", and I don't think that is someone that you can take to add to a Vikings secondary that's going to need a little bit of size and someone that can play on the outside. So
Yeah, I think that both of the Arizona State guys, if we went with them, Chase Lucas is 5'11", and Jack Jones, it looks like, is 5'10 and a half. So pretty similar. See, this is where we're at in this sense. I don't know how much they're going to see the field this year, unless we take them and it's like, holy cow, what a miracle they struck gold on one of these guys. I would personally be okay to reach here to take Chase Lucas, but there are some names that are going to be up here. I don't think we can. I just don't think we can take a running back. I don't think we can take a tackle in this position. I think those are two positions that are completely out the window at almost any part of this draft. There's a couple edges, I guess, but I really do think that we reach here for O'Connell because that just kind of seems to be what's happening. And I think if we want one, then that's what we have to do. But
yeah.
what is your opinion? Do you want me to pull the trigger on Lucas?
I'm cool with that, and then just kind of seeing how the board falls because we did we just get another 5th-round pick, or was it might have been a swap actually, but
I believe it was one. Hang on. Yeah, I think. Oh wait, no. There we are. So I'm all lost now. Hang on. There we go. Yeah, I think we just swapped.
okay, that makes sense.
Did.
Marco Jackson just went. He's a linebacker that within the last week or two, Appalachian State, he's a linebacker that I'm starting to like that I think could. He's physical and just runs with a full head of steam at the line of scrimmage, and I like players that play like that. I don't know if he's going to come in and ever get anywhere near the level of coverage skills that we currently have. I think the Vikings are kind of just spoiled with Eric Kendricks and his coverage abilities.
Yeah.
But pick 169.
169. We've got a few running backs and wide receivers. I did see Smoke Monday here, and I was like, that's a name I'm always drawn to. But with Hamilton being, the number one pick here, I just don't think that Smoke Monday has a chance of coming to the Vikings. So, and I'm A-okay with that. Micah McFadden is a name that I'm not uber familiar with, but I do I have heard good things. I've taken him in a few mocks. I kind of, whenever you read up on him, I do kind of like what I read about him and everything. But I haven't dumped a ton of time into him. Are you seeing anybody on here that is one of your guys that you pound the table for and absolutely love?
Not really, and it gets a lot harder when we get to this point in the draft.
Absolutely.
When it's at this point they're all dart throws. Mario Goodrich is another cornerback. I think I saw his name down there a little bit, which I want to say at one point he was near the top 130, 120 players, but I don't. He played opposite of Andrew Booth, obviously, and at this point in the draft, what do they have him at for a grade, round-wise at the bottom?
Oh, my bad. Is it the very bottom? Yeah. Fourth
round value in the 5th round. I'd be more than okay with that because, like I said, you have to take dart throws at the cornerback position if you don't go there early. So go back to back at the cornerback position. Load up some more talent there. It makes me feel a lot better going into the season that Patrick Peterson is back in Minnesota because you need someone like that. I think the Vikings learned that a few years ago with Terrence Newman, having that elder figure, especially when you have Cameron Dantzler, who's still progressing. Chris Boyd. I know Chris Boyd probably shouldn't be a starting cornerback at this point, but you still need to have someone in that locker room to kind of groom those younger guys, and if somebody gets hurt, they get to a level of play where they're confident in a couple of these players.
Looking at the board and kind of scrolling down, I saw him. There he is, Tyler Algier. Saw a lot of him whenever we were on that, that little streak with Zach Wilson a few years ago where we were just absolutely infatuated with the guy. He comes out. I'm not shocked to see him solo because he's a running back and it's a running back. Unfortunately, I don't think the Vikings are going to go running back after taking Wongwu last year, whose name we pronounced wrong every week until he took that kickback for a touchdown. But I do think he'll get more of a role in this offense this upcoming year. But looking at the board, I don't think another wide receiver makes any sense with the way the wide receiver room looks with George Pickens in it. It's crowded. I mean, it's very crowded.
Yeah, and I like Micah McFadden here, especially. We were talking about him with our last pick, and I think that there's a little bit of a the linebacker position is kind of a sneaky one for the Vikings because, yes, you have Eric Kendricks. Yes, we're switching to a 3-4 style where Danielle Hunter has actually been playing outside linebacker along with Zadarius Smith. I still think there's just very, very limited depth across the board on defense right now, and that implies the linebacker position as well. I mean, guys like Troy Dye, Chaz Surratt, they're going to have to pan out, and if they don't, you're going to need someone else to be there in case somebody does get hurt, and why not take another dart throw on the defensive side of the ball with a potential linebacker that can come in and contribute on special teams.
Absolutely. I think Micah McFadden will be. Oh, wait. I was like, okay, well, now we can sit back and relax. We're back. We're on the clock again. We had back-to-back picks because of that trade, and I didn't even realize it. But let's take a look. I mean, does it feel excessive to take Damarion Williams out of Houston here and just be like, we're taking 3 of them, okay, guys, we get it. You want corners, we'll give you 3. It's like Rick Spielman's offensive line like fixing was always like, we'll take like 6 of them in the 7th round, guys. Don't worry, one of them will pan out. And then
I also don't. I wouldn't hate Cole Turner here. I know that name better than I should because of DraftKings, because of the Carson Strong stacks that I used to run with him. I don't know. The tight end position is enough the case for damn near any position on this Vikings roster, and say it needs depth, it needs high quality football players. Not saying you're necessarily going to get a tight end that's going to come in and contribute right away. I know Zach Davidson was a similar dart throw at a very athletically gifted player last year. So that positional group is going to be a fun one to watch. Conklin no longer there. Irv Smith Jr. coming back from a knee injury, or coming back. I don't remember what the injury was. I just completely blanked out on what it was. But Irv Smith Jr. was the rave of training camp. All kind of signs are pointing towards him taking over that tight end 1 role, and rightfully so. I think he's the most talented tight end that the Vikings have had in the last decade or so. I know that might piss some people off because Kyle Rudolph was a great tight end for this team, but Irv Smith Jr., the ceiling is so much higher because he is that, as we say frequently, a bit more of that between the 20s caliber tight end that's going to play with a little bit more athleticism. Wow, am I struggling with that word today?
I do want to chip in here because I do want to take Cole Turner here if you're okay with it. Can I pull the trigger on that? Yeah, that's
cool.
I do think that one thing the Vikings offense, and it may not have missed it per se, we might not win that playoff game against the Saints a couple years ago if we don't have Kyle Rudolph on the team, because we just needed someone that was like, hey, you're taller than everybody on the defense. Go jump. Like, it is nice to have guys in that situation. I know more about Cole Turner than I do about Zach Davidson.
We have George Pickens now, though, for that role. To go up and punch you in the mouth and steal the football from you.
The videos of him, I'm going to trade our first-round pick next year for pick 256. That way I can take, like, Trey Turner or something. But yeah, so, one, I do want to look at the top 5 because I always find it interesting to look at these like, draft simulators and who they think the top 5 is going to be or what their algorithm has decided. Trayvon Walker, number 1. Which I don't know if that, like, maybe I've been out of the game a little too long here, but, like, that's outrageous, right?
He's the betting favorite now, I believe,
really?
To go number 1.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he's skyrocketed up, and
wow.
I've read some stuff. The Jaguars dumpster fire. I think they hired the right guy in Doug Peterson, but it's like I'm reading that the GM. It's one way or the other. I don't know which one wants. But the GM wants, one of them wants Trayvon Walker, and then the owner, versa, whoever it is, wants Aiden Hudson. So you have ownership still going at it with your GM, which just seems absolutely insane to me that you're getting this far along. I mean, the draft is literally tomorrow night, and there's reports. And like I said, don't believe anything right now. I don't. It's such a weird draft, and I think following the betting lines is the easiest thing to do. But there's smoke screens being thrown out left and
Absolutely.
right by these teams. No one knows what's going to happen. I mean, Malik Willis could go two. Malik Willis could fall all the way down to the 20s and go to a team like Pittsburgh. It's
Yep.
going to be a fun draft tomorrow
It's
night.
gonna be nuts, and I think one thing, and call me old fashioned. I don't think there was any percent chance that there are not like 2 to 3. I think 3 quarterbacks will be taken tomorrow night at some point. And I don't know who all went in this one. We'll quickly give it a once over. I'll see if I'm forgetting anybody. So Malik Willis went, and then no other ones in the top 20, and
No,
then
Desmond
oh,
Ritter
was
was
he
at
at? Oh, there he is.
16.
There he is. Thank you. Okay, so 2, and then yeah, so 2 went in the top 16, which like that's viable, but I just don't see like the Bengals getting Lindelbaum. Cool, I get it. That's like a need, but I don't know, man. I just those it
Another
seems
thing that
questionable.
I do want to bring up is a name that I've been taking every time I trade back with Pittsburgh. And like I said, I'm not going to admit the amount of mocks that I've done this for, but I sat up here a month or two back and said I wasn't sure I wanted to take an undersized cornerback at the 12 position, but I still really, really love the style of play that Trent McDuffie brings to the table. If the Vikings do trade back and McDuffie is there at 20, 21, 22, wherever they slide down to, pull the trigger on Trent McDuffie because taking him there is a little bit different than taking him at 12. And then on top of it, you get more resources on day 2 of the draft or in the 2023 draft class. And he's a cornerback that is going to be able to come in and play from day 1, whether that's from the outside would be seen. But he gives me, and I find players like this in every single draft because Antoine Winfield was probably one of my most favorite Vikings to watch play the game. So just that is the type of cornerback that I want. That I don't care if he's undersized or not. He's going to come screaming up to the line of scrimmage and he's going to punch you in the face as hard as he
Absolutely.
possibly can. Obviously, that's not real. He's not coming up and decking guys with his fist, but just the physicality at the cornerback position is always important, but it's going to be even more important in Ed Donatello's defense. And a guy like Trent McDuffie, he just gives me vibes of an Antoine Winfield, and I'd love to have another player in this Vikings secondary that reminds me of someone like that.
Yeah, give me Antoine Winfield. Give me Trent McDuffie if we trade back. Give me George Pickens in the second. Make him wear boxing gloves during practice because that would just be it would be awful. It would literally like Diggs and Rhodes used to get into it all the time, like and they would scrum and whatnot. It would be like that because they're both like just physical.
Except Rhodes would actually have boxing gloves on because Zimmer didn't want him holding
Yeah,
in
that's
practice.
very true.
So he
That's
actually
very true.
had to do it.
But that was different. That was just that way you couldn't grab jerseys. This is because like you could put all those freaky future concussion helmets on you want. You get socked in the temple. It's gonna rattle your brain. But okay, so we kind of went over the first round a little bit. Let's look specifically at how we have fixed the Minnesota Vikings. I'm gonna be honest with you. I liked our last draft better. I feel as though we got why am I forgetting his name? Who's the guy out of LSU who I should know because he's
Oh,
like
Derek Stingley.
thank you.
Yeah,
We got Stingley in that
yeah,
one. We were able to get I felt like a lot more defensive pieces, which is where I think the help is needed. And in this one, it is a little. I mean, this is probably more realistic in terms of an NFL mock draft where it's not 7 defensive picks and then 2 offensive picks at the very end just to say you got you bought the T-shirt that says I drafted an offensive lineman. But this feels more realistic, which is maybe why I don't feel like as hyped about it. But I don't know, getting Kyle Hamilton, like I'm telling you, it is like defensive rookie of the year lock. I'll go to the casino on Friday and I'll place that bet immediately, and then he'll probably get injured in training camp. But Jack, what are you thinking about this draft? Because our first 2 picks I'm hyped about. Our first 3 picks I'm hyped about, and then it was kind of like, oh, I really wish we would have escaped out of there with a corner that could stout week 1 or at least week 8 after a little bit of development. Where's your head at?
yeah. I think in an ideal situation, what happens here is if they do take Kyle Hamilton at 12, probably not looking at the George Pickens pick. As much as I love that pick, in an ideal situation for the Vikings, what happens, slide up a little bit in the second round to the point where they don't have to give up that many resources, and they go up and they get a guy like a Kyler Gordon. Coming out of the first 2 rounds at the cornerback, it's going to be huge for me. So that's really the only downside to this draft, is waiting until pick 131 to land the first cornerback. I
Absolutely.
still think you get 3 blue chip players that are going to come in and contribute right away. Maybe not Cole Strange. He might not win that battle in camp right away, but he's another good like I said, blue chip type player that is going to be starting for this football team down the road. You kind of know that when you take him there in the 3rd round. But the only thing that would make it better would be a cornerback of a higher caliber than we got. I know we did take a couple dart throws, but in an ideal situation, I wrote about, go up, it's on vikingsterritory.com. I wrote about the 3 most ideal situations for the Vikings, and actually didn't include Kyle Hamilton. I just have a feeling that he's going to go like top 8 still, but if he does fall, I'm 100% on board with the Vikings taking him. I don't know if that's the direction that they do go, but if I'm Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, that's my pick if he's sitting there staring me in the face. But the 3 most ideal situations for the Vikings, in my opinion, which it's starting to seem less and less likely for the first 2, is Thibodeau somehow falling to 12 or trading up into the 8, 9, 10, 11 range. Derek Stingley falling to 12, or finding a trade partner that is going to allow you another day 2 pick, preferably a 2nd-round pick, or potentially a 1st or a 2nd-round pick next year. I think those are the 3 most ideal situations, but right there, sitting there at number 4, if I would have wanted another 300-400 words yesterday or 2 days ago, I'd certainly have Kyle Hamilton right there. So I'm a fan of this draft, and like I said, the only real knock on it is not having a cornerback early and often, and I think that will be the case. In an ideal world, the Vikings find a quarterback in the top 77 picks, and I think I'd feel a little bit better about this. But like I said, I still like this one, but I think I'd prefer a world where it's Derek Stingley there at 12 instead of Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. One thing I am going to say, because I meant to bring this up while we were drafting, but we talked about other things. We talked about how much we liked Pickens in this spot, and how we kind of felt nasty picking a wide receiver when this team is so cornerback needy. I think hang on here, I can tell you, I can go to all picks, and then I can go to the 2nd round. And okay, so Nakobe Dean was the first pick of the 2nd round, so it wasn't as close as I thought. I thought he went closer to our pick. If the Vikings somehow find a way to get any secondary player in the 1st round, Hamilton, Sauce, McDuffie, I almost said Hamilton again, LSU guy who's Stingley, because I can't remember his name for the life of me, which means if we take him tomorrow night, I'll buy his jersey so I never forget it again. But if we get any like defensive secondary guys in the 1st round, and somehow we are able to also get Nakobe Dean, whether that's trading back into the 1st round kind of cheaply to do it, or even moving up in the 2nd to do it, the draft is a big W, because this defense is going to be really good for a really long time, I think. McDuffie scales me because of the analytics about his arms and his length and everything, and he's not in great company whenever you look at that, but I still think that, this draft is so deep with defensive talent that I think the Vikings are going to be able to play around with, like, okay, we didn't get Sauce in the 1st round. Let's get a guy like Andrew Booth. Let's get a guy like move down, obviously, but, let's get a guy like Trent McDuffie. Let's get some of these, a Tariq Woolen in the 2nd round. I think that they will get some guys that are going to come in, and I think this defense looks a lot different next year. It was not good last year at all. I don't think that's debatable, really.
There's room for improvement, is what you're saying.
There's room for improvement, but in some people's opinions, there is nowhere to go but up. So, I think that this draft, the Vikings defense is better with Kyle Hamilton on it. And then we see if we can walk Lucas or Goodrich into the scheme. George Pickens, I think, immediately stouts. I think he takes KJ's job because I think he's just going to be better than KJ Osborne, and KJ Osborne's a solid wide receiver 3, but George Pickens is pretty good at football. So,
Agreed.
yeah.
And I think one other thing that I haven't looked too much into this, I've started to read more on this, was actually kind of alluding to Andrew Berry and how he drafts in Cleveland. And it's almost like a youth movement is how he looks at the draft. I think they were the youngest drafted team when Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah was kind of the mentor there in Cleveland, learning underneath him. I think that's certainly something to monitor. I'm not going to sit here and say that I know the age of every single guy that we just drafted, but it's something that I think Vikings fans should pay attention to. I mean, they've had some good luck with some youthful players in years past. Danielle Hunter, I think Danielle Hunter was like 20 years old at the start of his rookie season. Like finding guys that haven't fully scratched scratched the surface with their potential, I think that's going to be huge for the Vikings in this year's draft. And that's just, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and throw a bunch of names because I don't know how old every single prospect is in this class, but it's certainly going to be something worth monitoring over the next couple days.
I guarantee that George Pickens is younger than Adam Thielen, and I guarantee Kyle Hamilton is younger than Harrison Smith. Boom.
That is true.
Youth infusion. And it does feel like the youth infusion thing is a thing in Minnesota, at least a little bit. I mean, we just hired a head coach that isn't too much older than like me and Jack, which I'm counting my guys in the mirror. There's a reason I wear a hat on this show, and it is because I'm ashamed. But my lighting's not good enough to see gray hairs. I don't know who I'm kidding. But yeah, I mean, so I took the draft away. It will be up on our Twitter if you want to see it. By the way, if you go on our Twitter and you're there to look at this mock draft and you're not subscribed, the road to 2,000 is still going strong. I think we actually just hit 1,200. If I'm not mistaken, but
yeah, that sounds right. I think you're right on that.
But yeah, so go ahead, subscribe to the Twitter. Let's see, what else can I tell you to do? Subscribe to the YouTube channel because we get a lot of views on our YouTube videos all of a sudden, and that's really cool. Thank you guys for watching so much. But apparently, because I haven't been telling you to smash that like button and hammer that subscribe button, you guys aren't doing it. So hammer the subscribe button, and of course make sure that you like the Facebook page and tell your friends about the show. That's the best way, is just say, hey, I know these two incredibly handsome, intelligent Vikings fans that know exactly what they're talking about, and if the Vikings just listen to them, we'd already have like 3 or 4 Lombardis. So other than that, I will give one final plug in the evening, and that is the Jack_H_Day is writing with Vikings Territory, Return of the King, if you will. And I mean, you got to check his stuff out. I plug it all the time because he's written for a few places. I don't care if he's writing on, if he's chiseling Vikings news into a stone like a caveman. Go read it because it's going to be excellent. It's going to be amazing. It's top tier stuff. It's insightful.
Because I appreciate the kind words first and foremost, but because it is Vikings territory and we are also affiliated with Vikings territory, obviously also up on the Twitter. So while you're going over to our Twitter to hit that follow button, scroll through, check out some mock drafts, check out some previous shows, because there's other mock drafts that we've also done that are a lot different than the one that we did tonight. And I mean, at this point, who knows? Maybe Jordan and myself will be doing mocks for 2023 within the next couple of months.
Tonight's mock draft, out of the ones we have done on the air, was the worst one. In my opinion, I was the least happy with this.
And we didn't move around as much. I feel like you and I
I kind of tried to do that because I do think we are very much I will trade in every round. I'm the type I will trade up. I'll trade down in the first and then immediately trade up and get 5 second-round picks and be how easy is this? And I get that that's not realistic, but it's fun. But you just, like Jack said, while you're on our Twitter, check out all of the older mock drafts, because after tonight, it doesn't matter anymore. Nothing we've said. I mean, like, you can come back and freezing cold takes us if you really want to on something. I've been kissing the ground Sauce Gardner walks on. He's a bust. I'm going to look like an idiot. If Zach Wilson's a bust, we both look like idiots.
That's true.
So, there's some guys that we've hit the table pretty hard on that. But other than that, you got to make sure you get it in, watch it, see some of our takes on these players. Tune in. Make sure you're subbed to the Twitter, because I think that our show scheduling for the draft and everything will be announced on there before it's announced on here. But other than that, check out Jack's work. It's great stuff. Follow the show on Twitter and all of the social media places. We're here every Wednesday as long as we're healthy and happy and everything's good. So, barring an act of God, we're here on Wednesdays. Other than that, hyped for the draft. Cannot wait. And I will pass it over to Jack. Jack, this is kind of the kickoff to the 2022 season. So
it is. There's a lot. Now I'm feeling the pressure. I just felt like the chills go down my back, like picturing the booze tomorrow night already. But yeah, I'm jacked up, and I'm excited to kind of talk about this next week. Whenever we do talk about this, we'll talk about that after the show, probably. Whenever we start talking about what happened in the draft, I'm looking forward to that too, because we're probably going to be completely wrong, and we're not going to have any mocks that we're writing. That's going to be the beauty of this. I'm really looking forward to watching the draft, but I'll keep it short tonight. I think we went a little bit long. Maybe we didn't. I'm not even 100% sure how the timing went.
We've went longer.
Do yourself a favor. Go get some popcorn tonight. Plug in Draft Day. Watch it 3 or 4 times tonight. I've already did my fair share watching. I watch it. Maybe I'll watch it again tonight, because it's the most realistic draft experience that you can find out there. But obviously that is a joke. But I still do watch the movie to kind of. It's cheap entertainment, if you will. It's still an entertaining movie, and like you, I am very, very, very excited for tomorrow night. I'll probably be doing some writing. You and I might have a show up our sleeves at some point as well. I feel like I had one other thing that I was going to say. Maybe it was just the draft day thing. But yeah, I'm excited. You're excited. Everyone should be excited. It's Christmas Eve in April, if you will. That's my saying. Not my saying. That's a saying that people that are nerdy about the draft like to say. And I am full-fledged in nerd mode, where within 24 hours of that time frame, looking forward to it. And most importantly, Skol as always.